Okay, hey everyone, Joseph Varghese here, rulesforsuccess.com. I'm beyond excited today because I have a unique individual, unique leader, entrepreneur from Australia. So about 12 hours ahead of me. It's very unique. Um, Dave Jen, Dave Jens is an Australian entrepreneur, author, speaker, and creator of Systemology, a seven-stage method for building businesses that operate with less dependence on the owner. And he's built and exited three businesses, written three best-selling books, coached 223 plus business owners across 40 industries, 27 countries, delivered a TEDx talk. He's appeared in more than 200 podcasts. And he's a kick-ass leader, really are. We just talked a little bit. We found we have a lot in common. His background includes stock market education business, Planet 13 rock and roll clothing business, Melbourne's SEO services agency. He's documented his agency's processes, hired a CEO, removed himself from daily operations. He's done a lot. And over the past 8 years, he's been focused on systemology. He's launched his second major book recently. He and I talk about kind of one of our mentors. We'll talk about that very soon too. Dave, how are you this morning? I know it's early morning there in Melbourne where you're at.
Hey, Joseph. Yes, doing great and looking forward to talk about systems.
Awesome. I'm excited too. And I also understand you've got an 8-year-old and an 11-year-old too. So we're going to have a lot to talk about the nature of systems, family, progress, winning, and really what it takes to be a business owner this day and age. I'm really, really excited about that. Well, tell us about your evolution, your journey. How did you get involved on this journey of understanding systems, supporting business owners? What put you on this trajectory toward entrepreneurship and supporting other entrepreneurs?
I think it must have come from my dad. He was a systems engineer, so maybe it was in my DNA. I remember the very first system I saw was a system he put together for my brother and I called The Sheet. And we'd earn points for doing different jobs around the house, and we'd get pocket money based on how much all of those points added up to. And I look back now and, that kind of maybe was my first programming into systems and processes and how it works. And I loved the systems and processes. My brother, not so much. He didn't follow them at all. And again, that probably taught me something else about systems as well. Not everybody is a systems person.
Is your brother younger, perhaps? Or was he older?
He's a couple of years older.
Oh, okay.
And he probably couldn't be any more different from me if we tried. So that current of systems has always been around. You mentioned a few of those businesses, the rock and roll clothing music store we franchised. We modeled it off Hot Topic, but brought it here to Australia. And by going through that, I mean, when you're franchising, there's a lot of manuals and systems that you need to have in place. The stock market education space that equally had a lot to do with designing entry systems and money management systems and things like that. So I've always felt like systems and processes was around my world. Strangely, though, it was the last business before Systemology. I somehow tricked myself into thinking that business was different. It was a digital agency, and the landscape was always moving quickly. And how could you document process if things were changing so quickly? They very quickly become out of date. And I ended up just building this business that was so dependent on me. And everything, every decision just bottlenecked through me. Every challenge or when things went wrong with clients, it would come back to me. I had a small team of 15, and really that was kind of the big turning point for me is when I found out we were pregnant, and I thought, I can't keep running a business like this. And that was kind of when it all started to change.
Amazing. And literally pregnant with your second child, I imagine, right? Where the necessity became that I got to show up as dad, right? And how does a business, how can I be useless to the business itself so the business can run and create more impact, perhaps, while you're taking care of family? Is that correct?
I didn't want to be that dad who was always too busy and didn't have time. I mean, I was doing the probably 70-hour work weeks at that point in time.
Yes.
And at least then I felt like I had a deadline. We had 9 months before the birth of our first child. And I was like, hey, I got to get stuff organized. And then I started to re-question some of the assumptions that I had, because I intuitively knew that systems and process held a huge part of the answer and the key to getting the business operating to my standards and where I expected it to be without me micromanaging everything. I intuitively knew that, but for some reason, again, I just tricked myself to think, oh, but this is different. We're too creative. My team won't follow process. I had all of this baggage that I had to go back and work through. And with that deadline, it really forced me to do it. And that was, you know, a huge part of me going, oh wow, this can be done, and this really works with any business. All
Yes.
businesses are essentially the same. You got to generate leads, you got to sell those leads, and you got to deliver your products and services. And there's a way of doing things, and that's what you need to capture.
It's good to have a deadline, and Parkinson's law works in our favor when we have a clear deadline, and certainly having a child is a great deadline to have.
Yes.
Yes, awesome. Well, let's talk about Systems Champion, right? That's your second book, and I know that we talked earlier. One of your mentors in the space over the years, and you wrote the foreword to your first book, Michael Gerber. It's my mentor too. He kind of challenged me 20 years ago to get out of my own way and build what I built with Success Circles. I know Gina Wickman wrote the foreword, or he wrote part of the testimonial into your current book. It's so great. It's so wonderful that there are frameworks that are out there that really support entrepreneurs to thrive, to get out of their own way. What does it mean to be a business owner? Like, I have my own definition. We kind of have our members kind of appreciate a certain mindset around. But to you, what is a business owner?
A business owner. I've not really thought about what is a business owner. I'd say it's I think they're special business owners because they they create a lot of opportunities for others around them, and they really solve some of the biggest problems. Like, they're problem solvers, and I feel like they're some of the hardest working individuals, and I think what it means to be a business owner is taking almost like some sort of ownership of your life. It's ultimate and complete ownership.
Yes.
When you say, hey, I'm going to build a business, I'm going to solve this problem, I'm going to deliver value, and the success and the failure of that really rests upon your shoulders.
Yeah.
So it's, I mean, maybe that's in the name there, owner. You just kind of, you own this.
Own yourself. Yeah, we talk about taking radical responsibility and really building systems, and really building something that keeps going, right? Continues to make an impact, and as that work teaches. Why does the owner repeatedly sabotage disposition? And we talked about this earlier too.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about that?
Look, often a lot of it comes from the picture that they have in their head around what their business is and what it looks like. Because they start off being on the tools and they do the work, oftentimes, if they got the business off the ground and they know how to do the technical work, then the picture that they create in their mind of what their business is of them doing the technical work. And that's part of what ties them to the business. And then they start to get some success, and they deliver for their clients, and they get great results, and the clients come back. And then they often micromanage and, look at all of the little details to make sure things are delivered just right. And that's what gets clients to come back. And because of that behavior then gets reinforced. And then they feel like, well, that's how I became successful. So I need to keep doing what got them to that point. But then they start to reinforce some of the bad habits that are required to break to move through to that next level. And you need to start a business that way, and you across everything, and you're wearing every single hat. But there's a point where you have to let go of that, and you have to capture your way, define your standard, and say, hey, this is how we do things here. And that's part of this process of transferring. But I actually don't believe that business owners want to micromanage, even though a lot of them do. It's just they want things done to a certain standard, and that they're making sure that it's done that way, and that's what causes it. But if they had the confidence to know, well, our way is captured and documented, and I've got the right people, they've got the right systems that they can follow to know how to deliver to that standard, I think it's easier for them at that point to let go and not do that micromanaging.
Yes, and we'll touch base with AI too, like later on throughout the conversation. I'm curious your thoughts of AI. I know for us with the work we do, using certain tools like Claude, Skills, Cowork, we've been able to automate much everything that was repetitive in a very unique way. And it's just fascinating the world how it's shifted the past 3 years, given what's available. Given that we could stay in our zone of genius, or do the things that kind of scale the business. I know we talked before about in Gino's model, integrator versus visionary, kind of puts those two hats separately. When they're in the same individual, there's friction. He talks about that. I'm curious about your thoughts about that. You'd mentioned that your definition of a systems champion in your book, your current book, slightly differs from the nature of what an integrator would be in that world.
Yeah, so I had some chats with Gino in the lead up to the book as I was keen to get his endorsement. And that was the first question he had, which is, how is this different and distinct from an integrator, and how they might put process into a business? And something's emerged, and it relates to the AI stuff. And it's happened only over the past 12 months or so that have really changed the way that we're systemizing business. The person who I see, it's their role to do this job, and it's so much more accessible now than ever before because of AI. And this systems champion's job is to, I mean, it's in the name, champion the idea of systems, but it's to develop a culture of systemization and systems and process in the organization, to capture best practice, to make it repeatable, to set that standard and get everybody online with that. It's the business owner, oftentimes the visionary, gets the picture in their head that, yes, we want to do this. But there's always the gap between idea and implementation. And for many business owners, they're not wired to do process. So they need to have that person who's going to be able to step in there and do it. Now, the COO, the integrator, oftentimes that person has many different priorities that they're working on, and they're juggling many different things. And the idea of writing out process or doing documentation or organizing, it isn't necessarily the highest and best use of their time. And I actually see some of my best systems champions in my various clients' businesses almost like the junior apprentice. It's a young person who may be trained on how to do the technical work, but they don't know how to run a business that delivers the technical work. They're moving into the industry. They're hungry and they're curious and they like technology. And it's almost like this mentor-mentee relationship where the whole job of the systems champion is to identify current best practice, who does jobs in the business to the best standard. And then they work alongside them and capture their best practice. Maybe they help them record it with a Loom or a Zoom, or they get out their phone or some form of capturing. And then it's the job of the systems champion to then build out the checklist and help catalog this and bounce this backwards and forwards with the knowledgeable worker a couple of times till they get it just right. And they build this body of work that becomes the business brain that explains how things are done in the organization and can be used for training up new team members and making sure that things are done to the standard that the business owner wants. So in the past, in some bigger organizations and things like that, they might get a Lean or a Six Sigma consultant
Right.
in, and they might pay them, 150, 200K a year.
Hmm.
But that was never very accessible for the small business. Whereas
Right.
now, with some of the new AI tools, we can take the transcript from one of those videos and drop it into AI, and it can draft up the process. This is now so much more
Yes.
accessible, and juniors are starting to fill this role. And I actually don't think that it is the best job
Hmm.
for the integrator, but rather have the integrator oversee this and have this team member kind of work throughout the organization.
Very, very well said. I mean, especially given what's available with AI, we lead a challenge called 3-Day AI. We had these two gentlemen from South Africa come on board just like 2 months ago. They talked about their process, how they kind of have an executive record their whole day on Zoom, what they're doing. And then they leverage AI to kind of figure out what the recipes, SOPs are. I found that fascinating. Then we had someone else come on board and share how they're able to take that video and put it through Manus and have Manus break it down into a recipe, right? And
Yeah.
then from that point, feed that into Claude and have Claude kind of repeat some of those aspects of things that can be repeatable, that may not need as much human intervention. And it's just very fascinating where AI is amidst all of that. I really appreciate your viewpoint on this, that the integrator, coveted role, CCO of sorts, managing teams, looking at the bigger picture too, in addition to the visionary. But secondary to that person, having a systems person, a champion, somebody younger, that makes a lot of sense in the way you framed it, especially if that person is able to capture those best practices and even challenge all the departments, groups to document everything they do. It's really vital, right? And it's not too complicated, but I imagine it does take a bit of an analytical mind to be able to challenge people and to actually write down those steps or have AI create those steps for the different parts of the business. I imagine.
Yeah, there's some skills that if the person has innately, or when you recruit for this role, or think about if there's someone in the organization who can already fulfill this role, at
Mhm.
least to get it started. Um, Sometimes, you're looking for someone who's naturally organized, and
Mhm.
they would create a checklist or a process even if you didn't tell them to.
Mhm.
And they're not afraid of new technology, and they've got that curiosity. Who knows? Maybe they even have some leadership qualities. There's a client of mine,
Mhm.
Ryan Stannard. He runs a building business out of Adelaide. They do about 15 million bucks. His daughter is the systems champion,
Wow.
and he actually found, because she kind of met all of that criteria, and going through this process, he actually said she's probably now one of the most knowledgeable team members in the whole organization, because she's had a chance to work with all of the team closely and
Mhm.
figure out their best process and help to extract it and document it and organize it. That
Mhm.
he's grooming her now to become the GM. So the systems champion can evolve as well if you pick that role. But it's also, sometimes it's just about getting started. You might not have the perfect systems champion now, and the systems champion you have today might not be the systems champion you have in another 6 months or 12 months. You've
Yes.
just got to get on the journey and start building a systems culture in the organization,
Yes.
because part of it is documentation, but you just having documents on their own is not enough. You have to get the team to follow them, and it has to
Yes.
be part of your way, and you have to indoctrinate and train team members when they first come on board, so that's all they ever know. So there's
Yes.
definitely, at the start, it's a bit challenging, and there's resistance, and the resistance comes from existing team members. But once you find your rhythm and your groove, and you're putting new people on,
Yes.
and you point them in the right direction from day one, it actually gets a lot easier. So the sooner you start this, the better off you'll be.
Beautiful. Like I love. We talk about recipes in our community and having like baking a cake for that matter, and
Yeah.
having the recipe in front of you on one screen or on a sheet, being able to follow it. It just it allows more opportunity for creative thinking because those objectives are met, those checkpoints are met each step of the order of baking a cake, making an omelet. So very, very well. So I'm curious, like, is there a test? There's, I know it's Kolbe and there's DISC and Enneagram. Is there
Yeah.
specific characteristics of those tests? If someone were to take those tests, an employee were to take those tests, where the owner would feel that, well, this person should be somebody who should be a systems champion.
Definitely one of the key ones. Like I've taken the Kolbe, and then I've had some systems champions take them as well, and they do end up being a little bit the inverse of the business owner. They're often strong in the areas where the business owner is weak, but probably one of the biggest ones is follow through and having the ability to start something and see it through and remain focused, because it's a job that compounds over time, and you don't see the immediate return. Like you can turn on your ads and straight away you notice leads are coming into your business, and oh, that's exciting, and things are going on, and that can really grab the attention of the business owner. Whereas a system, you put a system in place, it might not hardly move the needle. You put another system in place, okay, maybe we're a little bit better. But it's when all of these systems and processes compound over time and they make
Yes.
everything a little bit better, and they're these 1% wins, and then in 12 months time you go, wow, my business is unrecognizable. But
Yes.
you've got to grind through it and stick with it, and the business owner has hundreds of things competing for their attention, and processes are always important. They're never urgent. They're never ever urgent, so they
Yeah.
never get done. They, for a busy business owner, they just sit on the to-do list, and that's oftentimes what ends up trapping them to the
Yes.
business, is because they haven't set a standard. You mentioned something a bit earlier, and I love that metaphor of the recipe. Another one that I use also is processes are documented habits. So you look for all of your best habits and the habits that you want your team members to have, and we document those. And the first few times they'll follow them and they'll look at them and they'll have them open. But over time, we want the team member to internalize those habits.
Yes.
And then that becomes part of how they do things. So that's another helpful way to think of it.
Over 15 years ago, maybe more, I went to an event and someone gave a great acronym for systems that I often share with people to inspire them to create systems. Save yourself time, energy, money, and sanity, like systems.
Yes.
And that acronym, even for myself, having an engineering background, inspires me, right? To like keep documenting everything we do. You mentioned Loom before. I met the owner of Loom a couple of years ago at an event here in New York City. He sold the company. That tool is something that's simple, it's extraordinary, it's free, or you can pay, more facets of it. But it has the ability to record the screen, right? At any point, record everything that's done. And for the most part, it does map out all the steps that's needed, that were needed and done in the process. Especially if the person's willing to, as the recording, speak out what they've done. So we've used that quite a bit. I've challenged my team to do that quite a bit. A lot of owners, they'll say we created the process, but nobody follows it. So what does an owner do to understand the human behavior to ensure that team members are willing to go through the recipe, follow through with it step by step? What do they do?
This is at the heart of my new book, Systems Champion, around what needs to be in place for the team to actually follow process. And there are really three main reasons people don't follow process. Even when you group everything together, they kind of fall into these three buckets. And the first bucket is I didn't know how. Then it was I didn't know it was my job, or I didn't know it was expected of me. And then the last one is I didn't want to. So we systematically solve each one of these. So the first one, I didn't know how, that is about getting great documentation down. So someone can't say, oh, but I didn't know how to do it, if we have this rule that you never want to be more than one click away from a process in the moment in which you need it. So if
Yeah.
you're assigning a task to someone, you link to the process. If you're out in the field, you print up a QR code and you stick it to the piece of machinery, and then they scan it. So it's very easy to make the jump from I'm doing the work to here's how we want the work done. So that's how we solve that first one. And that's generally the first one you want to solve because it's the easiest one for team members to say to kind of get out of jail free card, which is, oh, but I didn't know how. You didn't tell me how you wanted it done. Like, how can you hold me to account? The second one, which is the I didn't know it was expected of me, is more to do with, you want to build an organization of accountability and transparency, and it needs to be very clear who is doing what by when. So tasks, especially the ones that are repeatable and ones that happen on a set cadence, they need to be captured. Oftentimes we talk about putting this in a project management or something like that piece of software, rather than it being verbal or written in an email or something that'll just get lost and forgotten about. You want it transparent and open for everybody on the team to see that, well, it's Sally's job on Tuesday every fortnight to process and pay the wages. And here's the task, here's the due date. And look, there's a link here to the how-to document that explains how it's done.
Do you have a favorite tool? I'm slightly shifting this topic, but you got me. You have a favorite project management tool, like there's ClickUp and Asana, and there's so many, Monday.com. Is there one that you put?
Look, I don't have a favorite. I have the one that we use just because I've used it since the dawn of time. Would I pick it again? I don't know. But we use Asana. It does the job, has done the job very well for us. Before that, we used to use Basecamp, and that felt like Asana was an evolution on that. But since then, the world has moved. We've got ClickUp and Monday and Podio and Trello, and there's just
so
loads of them. The key is to have one, and you want to have a central source of truth. Ideally, you don't want to have this scattered across too many different tools for different teams and things like that. It needs to be obvious that it's Sally's job on Tuesday to pay those wages. And then that makes it much easier to hold someone to account, because you can go, well, I told you how it needs to be done. I told you when it needed to be done. It was your job. Then we kind of move to this last one, which is I didn't want to. And how do we tackle that? This one's probably the most challenging, but we solve the first two first, and then we kind of move to this last one. Sometimes this can show up in other forms as well. I say, oh, I don't have enough time, or, oh, I didn't have the resources to tackle that, or, oh, it's not a priority for me right now. I've got all of these other things that, I need to be working on. So it can show up in different ways. A lot of it has to do with helping the person to understand the why, and why this task is important, and what the second order impacts are of them not doing it appropriately, and who on the team that affects. And sometimes it is, laying the law down of, hey, this is how we do things here, and I've got clear expectations. And at that point, someone's either going to step up and do the work that you've employed them to do, and then occasionally you might even get some people to opt out, which is also okay. I prefer that they opt out. It's the ones that stick around, that don't quite follow the process, that continue to sabotage. They're the ones you really got to watch out for. But it's that I don't want to. Generally speaking, you just address it as you're introducing a systems culture. But when new team members come on board, it's less of an issue, because that's all they ever know. They've only known your way. This is how we do things here. And if they don't follow that early on in the piece, then they realize that, oh, this culture is not right for me.
You've established context early on. Sometimes context is very decisive, especially in those moments when they're onboarded, expected to take on a role, and it's laid out right in front of them. Michael Gerber, he talks about the McDonald's model, for example, and this isn't quite McDonald's, it's just running an agency or a business, it's online business. But there's some elements of it that are very useful, having recipes, checklists, having people knowing what the role is in different scenarios. And that model is franchisable because it's you walk into McDonald's or Chick-fil-A and you have the same consistent experience wherever you are around the world.
So one of our clients here in Melbourne, her name's Jeanette Farron, and she runs a company called Diggy Doggy Daycare.
Mm.
And they're a doggy daycare center where people come and, leave their dog for the day and they go off to work and they give it treats and walk it and wash it and stuff like that during the day. Really fun business.
Love it.
Her and her sister ran that business for about 13 years before they thought, oh, okay, we've had enough now. We want to kind of work towards an exit. And they spent probably about was close to 2 years getting all of the processes super tight. Jeanette and her sister kind of stepped out of, not working in the location. And then the person that came knocking on the door that was the acquirer was a listed company here in Australia called Petstock. They already have a whole bunch of stores around Australia. And when they made her the offer, which was life-changing money for her, they cited two things. They said it was financial performance and the systems. And they said, we see your store as the franchise prototype that we can then bolt on to all of our existing network, and instantly we get huge leverage. Now we can try and figure this out and, reverse engineer it and take a few years to do it, or we can buy you now, already proven shortcut, and then bolt it onto our store where we've already got significant leverage.
Yes.
So it was, a great strategic buy, and kind of demonstrates that really the ultimate value, the big payday that comes for the business owner, is someone who just wants to buy that intellectual property as the shortcut.
Yes. It happens all the time with so many franchises, medical facilities, you name it. And it does take having the right system. And you never know who's walking in the door, who's seeing it, who's willing to kind of invest or make a decision. It's really, really vital. How do you build consistency without creating a company of robots, right? Whether it's AI bots or even people like, I often find people I've hired, the organizations I'm part of, people want to have creative control, creative direction, and be fueled by a why, their personal why, the bigger why. But how do you? I'm sure this is a question people often have too. Is how do you break out of people being kind of robotic? Like, where should people follow the system, and where should they use their judgment and creativity in ways that advance things too?
Yeah, I learned this lesson through my digital agency. I'd built out like a little sister company, which was video production. And I'm not a video guy. I don't know how to turn the camera on. I don't know how to do the editing. That business from day dot was not me doing the work because I didn't know how to do the work. It was just a bolt on to the existing business. And that is an incredibly creative business. Like the whole idea of video, it's like an artistic endeavor. And I had this videographer, and I remember we were going to a shoot and he needed someone to come along to help out. So I said, yep, look, I'll come on, jumped in the car. And I remember it was about 45 minutes from the studio, and we spent the entire car ride talking about, oh, did you bring that extra lead? Did you email the client to tell them that checkered shirts don't look good on screen? Oh, did we get that second battery? Where's that extra lens? Like, we spent the whole car ride just talking about stuff that just should have been handled. And I said, as soon as the shoot was over, I said, we've got to get some processes in here, get some checklists. You need to have a pre-shoot checklist that you run the night before to make sure everything is done and dusted and packed away, so you can hit the ground running in the morning. So about 6 months later, I go on another shoot with him, and the experience couldn't have been more different. Like, the conversation we were having was things like, how do I get the best performance out of the actors, and what is the visual mood that he wanted to have, like all of the creative stuff. And it made me realize you systemize everything around the creative work. You systemize the things that just need to happen a certain way. invoices, communication, all of that scheduling, all of like there's a whole bunch of business that just has to happen a certain way. And when you remove that and you let the system handle that, that actually creates space for the creativity, for the team member to do the great work. So that for me always stuck with me, that it's very counterintuitive. People think systems remove creativity, whereas it's actually the space you create gives the opportunity for great creativity.
Very, very well said. You take care of all the left brain analytical things, get that managed, and there's room, freedom for the creative side of things, for the flow to come in, and even to maybe enjoy the conversation, people to go into that shoot and kind of enjoy the conversation. So we were, using that time to amp each other up, right? Instead, very, very well said.
The other one with that comes to mind, I remember an interview with Reed Hastings, who was the founder of Netflix, and he said initially they wanted to effectively McDonaldize their whole operations and have everything systemized and documented down to micro detail. And they went on that endeavor, and they did. They created a whole bunch of process to dummy proof the business. And then he said the only thing that they found was after they dummy proofed the business, only dummies wanted to work there because they went too far and over documented. And that's something that some people blindly follow McDonald's on, and they'll go, oh, well, if they're the poster child of a systemized business, I should systemize like McDonald's. And then they forget, well, I'm not running a hamburger business that's looking to recruit 16-year-old kids who this is their first job, and I have to tell them absolutely everything. So you have to think about documentation to the level that's required for the role and who's doing the task, and what level of detail and skills are they going to need, and do they come to the job with. So that's, you don't want to tell someone how to, do something super, super basic when they can do that with their eyes closed. You have to really think about what needs documentation and what doesn't.
I'm laughing because this week my nephew, who's 16, Peter, just started working at McDonald's.
Such a good place to
start. And you didn't know that, but so
there's a lot of lessons to be learned from McDonald's. One of my best clients, Shannon Schmidt, she runs an accounting business a few suburbs over from me. They've got about 20 accountants and a range of bookkeepers and whatnot. But her first business was her first job was working in McDonald's, and it meant that systems and systems thinking was just ingrained in her. So when she started an accounting business, she didn't have to learn it the hard way like a lot of business owners do. The value of systems she knew, and she started putting it into place in day one. And what I didn't appreciate until just we've had the big wave of AI start to roll out, is how well that positioned her to leverage that wave. Because when you're clear on your most important processes and how you do what you do and the step by step, it's a very small step to then take those SOPs and documentation to go to AI and say, well, how can you help me automate this? And how can we do this faster, cheaper, and better? And all of my best clients now are absolutely rocketing ahead because of AI, because they had such a great foundation. I mean, that speaks to, I know you're an engineer in a past life. So, and you were talking about Claude and skills, and I mean, you get this stuff. Like it would have been an easy jump for you to go, oh, I get that, or I'm already halfway there. Whereas some people, if they haven't yet got that in place, they're a bit behind the 8 ball and behind the game when it comes to the AI revolution.
It's quite extraordinary what's happening in AI, the world it is now. I mean, it's been out for a while, but just past few years, and the ease of accessing these things. We use Hermes, and it's a kind of an open cloud Hermes. These tools that you can build agents to respond to people and automate things. There are things we did 15 years ago when I met Michael Gerber, he challenged me to build success circles. The work that went in every 2 weeks to partner up members in our community would take a day, like maybe
Yeah.
10, 12 hours. And then now with AI in place, it takes minutes. And also the members of our community have agency now toward making decisions, reaching out and communicating, saying what they want. Just makes life so much easier. I'm curious. So you've said that AI has forced you to make that painful decision to let members of your documentation team go. What did that experience teach you about using AI responsibly?
I think it was a tough time. It was just after ChatGPT broke, and I pasted a transcript of a task I was doing into ChatGPT, and I said, "Can you turn this into a process?" And at the speed of AI, it was done. And that was the moment where I was like, "Wow, this changes a huge part of my business."
Yeah.
Because we offered some documentation services to our systemologists. They would work with their clients, record things getting done. We would take their recordings, document it, and push it into their System Hub account. And virtually overnight, that just disappeared. I shared the tool with the systemologist because, I mean, what other option did I have? I could not share it with them. They were going to find out at some point, so I might as well share it with them. But then all of that work disappeared, and then here I was with 7 team members on the documentation team, and I was like, okay, well, some of them I'll try and put into other roles, which I did, and then some of them we were just way overstaffed, so I had to let go of them. So it was challenging. It made me realize how quickly an industry can change.
Yes.
And how disruptive AI is going to be and already is.
Yeah.
It gave me an unhealthy sense of urgency when it comes to adopting this technology and what needs to be done. And I mean, just hearing some of the tools that you're using, I mean, you're right on the leading edge with regards to using Hermes and playing around with skills and automating. And this is affecting every role, every
Yes.
industry, every person. And even some people who think, oh, I'm a little bit safe, I've got time here. They'll sit there and think, oh, I'm a tradie, I unblock toilets, and it's going to be a while before the robots start unblocking toilets. So I don't have to worry about this AI thing. And I need to remind them that, okay, maybe you've got time with unblocking the toilets, but everything else around it, your marketing, your invoicing and finance and managing your staff and your stats, like absolutely everything else is changing, and you've got to start embracing this now, or you will get left behind, because those that are using AI outperform those that don't by 10x. And if your competitor picks up these tools and starts using them, you cannot outcompete them. You can't outwork them. The only way to compete is by using these tools. There is, fortunately, a first mover advantage right now. We're still early enough that if you listen to this message and you start to adopt it, you can skyrocket past your competitors. But that won't last. That window will disappear, and you will look back on the moment, if you don't apply this in 2 or 3 years, and you'll go, wow, when I listened to that episode with Joseph and Dave, that was, it's either going to be a turning point for the good or the bad. And you'll end up being, if it's bad, you're going to be the next Blockbuster or Kodak or the business that failed to see the writing on the wall. So, I mean, it was a huge defining moment for me. I don't know what this means in 2 to 3 years. It's very hard as a visionary to see long distances right now, because everything can change and move so quickly. But what I can tell you is the genie is out of the bottle. And there's no going back. And you really have to go forward and burn the bridges. There's no other option right now.
Nobody expected Claude Code to come out.
Yeah.
in a way
Yeah.
where it disrupted anyone who was a programmer, essentially, to write better code, more efficient code, um, easily. So that's just one area. I I um I came out of college at the birth of the internet, and what's happening now is along those same lines to
Yeah.
what happened back then, even even more so, even more so. And I find people's context of AI is oftentimes what they remember 3 years ago when ChatGPT came out and where it was hallucinating a lot. Most everyone I talk to who's kind of like on the well, should I embrace? Should I use it? They still think of those times, those news reports. That was their earliest context, but these tools have evolved quite a bit since then, and they're
Yeah.
evolving, right? And they're learning from each other as well. And even the robots in Asia and such, they're learning from each other. It's very fascinating where things are at.
And
Would
people, I hope they don't hear the word Claude Code and get scared off and go,
Mm,
it's for code. I'm not a coder, or this is too scary.
mm.
You start using it and you go, this is a chat box that I
Yes,
can ask to do anything behind a screen
build me
and it can
Pac-Man,
do it.
build me
Yeah.
Pac-Man.
Like you don't have to be
Yeah,
technical to do this. We just have been rolling out Claude Code with various team members, and I was strategic at the start, and now we've just rolled it out to our whole team. And I was having a discussion with my um, customer service lead. Like, she works out of HubSpot and looks after all of our tickets and things like that. Um, she's shot ahead because we use the Teams account, and I can see her usage. She is leading the leaderboard of using Claude to help with her various roles. And then she goes, "I'm loving it, and I'm not even technical," is what she said.
I
Like,
love it.
she's like
Yes.
self-identified non-technical person, yet she is just storming ahead. Once you see it and you get that experience with it, it is addictive and it is so much fun. Like, I've never been more excited and enjoying business about what is possible. Like, maybe it's equal parts excitement, equal parts scared. Where is this going to go? But
Yes.
it is an amazing time to be a business owner.
It truly is. It truly is. Dave, what's one workflow an owner should document this week before buying another AI tool? What's one thing that Systems Champion um, could eventually become their company's AI champion? What would you say?
Yeah. Look, we often talk about the system for creating systems is a great place to start. Like, how do you capture best practice, document it, make that checklist, organize it, have it centrally stored, make it very repeatable and something that you can share around the organization. If you get that workflow down, it's almost like that hack of, like the genie that you get 3 wishes and the first wish you say is, I wish for more wishes.
Mm,
Like, it's that system for creating systems actually unlocks a lot of what is possible when it comes to systemization.
I love it. Are there systems used in your household, with your kids, and things of
Yes,
that sort?
well,
What do you got?
to go full circle, we just created a thing called the Sheet 2.0,
Hmm.
which is, maybe an ode to my father, and a thing called, it's a Starlight. It's almost like a little
Mhm.
iPad with various different chores that the kids at the start of the day, which they're probably just looking at right now, as they'll just check off, and they'll that's how they earn their pocket money.
Yeah,
It's a very simple system where we incentivize the behaviors that we want, and the idea, hopefully, it's they do it consciously, but I want to program these habits in so one day it's subconscious for them, and they just do it. They just clean their room and they unload the dishwasher just because that's what they know.
amazing. I love that. We'll look into implement. We have some of that going on in our household, but not imperfectly,
Yeah.
as far as chores allowance and so forth. What are some, other than drinking coffee in the morning, which you are now? What's a ritual that you embrace, either the start of the day or the end of the day? Maybe in alignment of systems, or maybe just alignment of you, um, just having a great day, having a better day.
I've got two things that bookend my days. One I'm about to do in a moment. I'll go make breakfast for my boys. We'll have like breakfast as a family in the morning. I'm quite fortunate. I've built a life where my studio's out the back of the house and I'm here at the start of the day, at the end of the day. So yeah, I think starting with, family breakfast and then finishing it at the end of the day with dinner as well. Like I love those,
Nice.
creating that sacred space where we sit down and we have a chat and there's no devices and we talk about what goes on in the day. As cliche as that sounds,
Mm,
I think that is such an important ritual for a family.
amazing. I love it. I we have these clickers like by us, and my wife was at her baby shower. My daughter was born 11 years ago. We give these out to people. We have these all over the house, and it's basically they count blessings. So we have them everywhere in the house, and we just challenge our kids to count their blessings every moment as they go to bed and when they wake up and so forth. That's one we do. So I
Love
get
it.
I get the value of that, and it's cool being a parent, and when we have systems in place and people to leverage, um, it allows us to still show up and play hard. I'm, I'm curious too. Do you take vacations with the family? Is that
Yes,
something?
yeah, for sure. We my immediate family through my wife, like I ended up marrying into a big family.
Mm,
Came from a small family and then married into a big one,
mm,
and we'll often do camping trips with them, like
mm,
as a all of the siblings get together and we all go do that.
mm,
And then we have our other little breakaway ones that our family does, whether it's a trip up to the snow or occasionally, like
mm.
every year or two at most, I like to do like a good overseas one, whether it's Thailand or Japan
I
or
love
just
it.
something to kind of
Mm,
uh, give the kids a little bit of culture shock. And then, I mean, we live in a little bit of a bubble where we do, like,
mm,
we're very privileged, very lucky, living down by the water, safe location,
mm.
with a lot of services. So I kind of want them to go, this is not how 99% of the world live. Like, they
Mm.
need to hopefully appreciate it. That's why I loved your little idea of the clicker there. Like, I think that's just being grateful and appreciative of the blessings that you do get um, is absolutely critical. And sometimes you just need that comparison and contrast to really
Yes,
appreciate what you've got.
absolutely. It's good to count blessings and just be present in the moment. We make better choices when we're fully engaged in the moment. I love the idea of taking vacations. We often challenge our clients to take time off and um, be disconnected from the business, so the business runs better without them. Some of the people we've interviewed talk about that idea of taking anywhere from 17 days to 3 months off a year. That whole idea of being useless to the business. So I love that you're also embracing that with your family as well. I'm sure you're also challenging your clients to do that as well, to take more time
It's
off.
the true test of the business. Like, I mean, uh, you want to have a profitable enterprise that works without you. And that's a Brad Sugar's action coach quote. That's the way that he
Mm,
defines a business. It needs to be a profitable enterprise that works without you. And oftentimes when you go away on vacation, that is the true test of the systems. And you come back and you see what's broken, what didn't work. And we always talk about every problem in business is a systems problem.
mm,
So if you come back with a whole bunch of things that are broken or work that didn't get done, like that's a signal for you. Okay, well, I've got to work on my systems in this area, or I've got to make sure that this is somebody's responsibility.
very well said. Well, I absolutely appreciated this conversation. Like so much wisdom you parlayed forward. For our audience, check out Systemology, check out Dave's book, Systems Champion. Dave, any other words of wisdom you'd like to offer our audience? Any other tips you'd like to offer our audience?
Look, other than it's possible to own a systems driven business even if you're not a systems person. Like, that's a lot of business owners go, yeah, but that's not me, or I'm not a systems person. Like, you just got to find the yin to your yang. Find someone. If you're not strong with systems, then that means you need to have someone strong on your team who's strong with systems, because systems will just make your business and your life better. Like, I don't think I've ever had a discussion with the business owner where we haven't agreed. Systems deliver better outcomes for everybody. It's just clearly defining what works and making it repeatable. So just get started with that first system we talked about, the system for creating systems.
Yeah. And perhaps the systems you create, your first one will create you a little more freedom. And all the systems in time will give you a lot more freedom, where you can take more time off to be with your family, your loved ones, explore the world, and do the things you enjoy. Well, thank you, Dave. This podcast episodes of rulesforsuccess.com tap into the AI summary, the mind map, all the things we'll provide you there. It's on all our channels, Spotify, Audible, YouTube, and more. Thanks again, Dave. Have an amazing day.